Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name's Derek Arden, and welcome to the 86th Monday Night Live chat show. Today, I've got Kate Atkin with me. If you remember, Kate joined us last week and gave us an interesting, intriguing insight into the imposter syndrome.
You're welcome, Derek. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of your Monday Night Live chat show. So what is it? Well, the first thing to explain really that actually, as Derek's already mentioned, it's not a syndrome. We should call it a phenomenon, nor are you an imposter. So the piece about being an imposter is a deliberate fraud. When you feel like an imposter, you are not a fraud at all. You're not deliberately defrauding anybody, but it's something on the inside. A syndrome itself has medical connotations. It's not a mental health condition at all. It is faulty thinking that occurs at certain points in time. So a phenomenon is a more accurate description because a phenomenon is an occurrence at certain points in time. And it happens for some people at work, for some people with certain people at work. Sometimes it's conversations, maybe now it's Zoom meetings when you've got to speak up or challenge somebody else, and occurs also sometimes when you go for promotion, and occasionally at home, homeschooling, working with friends, family, different situations. But in essence, it's this internal feeling of intellectual phoniness despite the external evidence of success. It's a sense of feeling like a fraud, of wondering when you will be found out. But it differs greatly from self-doubt, although it might feel similar. Self-doubt itself is normal, and I would say self-doubt is also extremely helpful. Self-doubt is this occurrence when you wonder whether or not you're going to do something right, whether it's going to go well, if you're doing it for the first, second, or maybe third time. When you've already got that track record of success, when you're doing it for the 13th or 30th time and you're still wondering whether you're going to get found out, that is absolutely the imposter style self-doubt. What are the causes? What are some of the problems that occur? It can prevent people recognizing knowledge, skills, and capabilities. It can stop people putting themselves forward for promotion or new tasks, and it can create high levels of stress, self-sabotaging behavior, and is very much linked to anxiety and also depression in some of the academic literature. But it doesn't mean that people don't put themselves forward for promotion. It doesn't mean that they won't speak up in meetings. It just means if they do that, they may have this extreme internal level of anxiety. So it's the stress that sometimes occurs for people. Academic research also indicates is that 70% of people at some point in their lives will experience this. So that means then there are 30% who don't experience it. Not all of them are experiencing something which is the flip opposite, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is where you think you can do anything and you have got no evidence for that. Some people just have a very healthy sense of their knowledge, their skills, and their abilities. They know what they can do, they know what they can't do. It's roughly equally split between men and women. Some of the internal chatter may be along the lines of these four statements, and these are taken and extracted from the Clance Imposter Phenomenon scale, not directly extracted, but they link to some of the validated questions. There's a 20-item scale that Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes put together to indicate whether or not people are experiencing the imposter phenomenon. So these statements, when things go well, I'm afraid I won't be able to replicate successes, is this piece about, in the imposter's world, this feeling of, whoa, that's great. And then you get a lurch inside your tummy, or that's where my lurch happens. And then it's, I've got to now live up to that success. So there's a fear of not being able to replicate success. When you get a compliment or when something's done well, it's like, that was, they're just being kind, they're being nice to me, rather than actually they really mean it. The absolute dread of being evaluated. So whether or not, if you're employed and you have an annual appraisal, that's one of the intense points that crop up for people who have annual appraisals. At that particular point, it's a significant impact on the imposter chatter in their own heads, any form of evaluation. And also for some people, it's speaking up in meetings, because if they ask a question, they wonder whether or not they're then disclosing how much they don't know. And actually that disclosure can be nerve-wracking for some people. So it just gives you an idea of some of the internal chatter that's happening. Where does it come from, though? And there are a number of different pieces that research indicates causes the imposter phenomenon to occur in people. So parenting styles is one, but for me, the parenting style that I got was in essence hypercritical. It was something was never quite good enough. And so you get home and you've got 8 out of 10 in your spelling test, and you might get, so which 2 did you get wrong? And that then gets internalized as, I've got to be perfect in order to be loved. Not by everybody, but that's the way in which lots of people will interpret that parenting style. The hypercritical parent, the intention is loving, and it's intending their child to be the best they can possibly be. So it's done with the best of intentions. The same as the other style of parenting, which it flipped to, is hyper supportive parenting. And the hyper supportive parenting is, you can do anything, darling, you'll be absolutely fabulous. And that's been interpreted more recently by those who are now millennials and younger folks entering the workplace as, I've got to do everything well. So it's quite interesting how that parenting style, although it flipped from hypercritical to hyper supportive, still hasn't been super helpful for everybody. Now, societal messages is another piece, actually just looking around and seeing whether or not you think you belong and whether you fit with the societal messages that are coming out. And I was doing a talk to GPs last week on this topic, and somebody popped into the chat function. There is a female GP is still expected to be a nurse as opposed to a GP. So it's, what are you being told by society and the way in which people interact with you? So when you feel like you don't belong, you look around and you feel other, whether that's from a gender perspective, whether it's from a race perspective, or whether, as one person described to me when I was doing a piece in the City of London, came up to me after, she said, oh, that was so me. She said, I was brought up in a council house in the north. That's got diddly squat to do with her being able to do her job well in the city. But she felt like she didn't belong because she was brought up in the council house in the north. And I guess in some ways that's similar to my upbringing in rural Lincolnshire. And we used to joke that you need a passport to get out of the county of Lincolnshire. And there's a piece that I work with people about growing into themselves, accepting their knowledge, skills and capabilities as they are now. And one of the things, just to mention very briefly, is this lack of like role models. There's a link to Inga Beale's Desert Island Discs program on Radio 4, and she says in there, she talks about, she had this imposter feeling until she went to Australia, where she saw that women could be successful in senior roles in banking, and she went on to become CEO of Lloyd's of London. So how do you manage these imposter feelings? So if you're experiencing, what can you do about it? So the first thing I would suggest is that we watch the self-talk. We watch how easy it is to dismiss something down to luck, or they were just being kind, or in the case of my first academic essay, they've made a mistake, but I didn't dare ask them to remark it. It was just this nervous, surely that can't be right. So listen out for something and putting successes down to something external, luck, kindness, or a mistake. But then also watch the self-talk if you say, okay, yeah, I deserve that because I've worked really hard at it. Now, actually, there's an element of hard work can also trigger imposter chatter. It's not that helpful. So other people will say, oh, I'm just doing my job. There is never just, there is an I am doing my job. And then, of course, if anyone can do it, if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's not true. If you're doing it, others could do it, but you are the one who is. And so what I would also suggest is, with this self-talk piece, is to recognize that with any amount of luck, any amount of hard work will not help you be successful if you don't have knowledge, skills and capability. So it's actually the mix of those in amongst some luck and some hard work. Because knowledge, skills and capability without an element of hard work, and without occasionally the odd piece of luck or serendipity coming your way, also might not make you successful. So think about a blend of those things when you watch yourself talk. Then the other thing I would suggest you do is to note down positive feedback that you get. And some people don't keep the positive feedback because it's too excruciating to reread. I remember talking to one lady and she said, I got a gorgeous email thanking me this morning from somebody, but I deleted it straight away. She couldn't bear to keep it. And it's quite interesting because it doesn't fit with the internal mindsets. But if we're aiming to overcome the imposter phenomenon, we need to change the internal mindsets, and the external evidence is one way that you can do that. So keep your positive feedback. Who do review it, when you do so, it's very easy if you've got an imposter mindset to go, yes, but they were doing this. Yes, but it was hard work. Yes, but it was down to, luck. Actually, what we need to do is start to yes and the positive feedback. Yes, and I learnt this from that particular event. Yes, and I used this particular skill at that particular point in time. So internally, you don't have to yes and it to everybody. Go, yay, aren't I great? It's actually an internalization of acknowledging that you do deserve that positive feedback, that you have created it, and start to then change the mindset. And one of the things with positive feedback, Derek, I've heard somebody else suggest as a tip, is that at the end of every week, you email a buddy one thing that's gone right that week, one thing that's happened that you think is really positive that you have done, and that buddy emails you, and then you've got a collection of weekly emails of things that have gone well. And actually, another thing about from a trust perspective to help overcome the imposter chatter is to start to talk about it. But to start to talk about it, that also must be with somebody that you totally trust. And because you're revealing something internally about saying, I don't feel as if I'm good enough here. I'm wondering whether or not I'm a fraud and I'm going to be found out. And when you talk to that person, the thing is, if somebody talks to you about their imposter chatter, please do not tell them they are amazing. You can tell them why you think they're amazing, but amazing is like, what? You? No, surely not. You're amazing at da 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 da. That makes the other person's imposter chatter feel even worse. So if you're choosing to open up to someone about your imposter chatter, what you want is somebody who will listen to you. You don't want somebody who will tell you how amazing you are. You might want somebody who will help you unpick all the successes that you've had in your life, but please don't choose somebody who will just give you that accolade of amazing.